Right, hello, and welcome to the introduction to four-player chess teams variation. Obviously, I've done a free-for-all intro and how to get going at that. Now, teams is a little bit more difficult because I'm just not as good at teams. I don't really know as much, but I'll try and talk you through what I do know just to get you started. So obviously, this is really difficult to get started, but once you're over that first barrier, it actually is very fun. So first thing we're going to look at in this video is openings. So the first move, red's got two options really, and it's either of them two. For beginners this is, obviously, you get maybe one or two more options when you get a lot better at the game. But for beginners, you really only have one of these two options. One of these, blue has really one response. Sometimes you can play this, but it's really not the best. Unless you know what you're doing. Yellow again has two options, same thing, and then green has one option again. Otherwise, they almost always get mated. Sometimes you can play this, very rarely. When you're very good. So yeah, we'll just jump into a few games. Jump into the board and we'll walk through the only two openings that you should really be playing as a beginner. Right, so the first opening is obviously this one. Right, so the first opening we're going to look at is going to be this one. It's basically just the standard opening everyone should play. So basically, just blue's response would be just this. Obviously, that should be their only move. Yellow like this. Green just like this, standard. Everyone gets their queens out. Queen's nice and active. Now red creates this threat against blue very early on, forcing blue to respond. Then yellow responds with the same sort of move, defense, because if blue doesn't play this, and this is why the openings are very tricky, say blue plays something like just developing a knight or counter-attacking or anything else really, yellow can just come in, green can't do anything. There's nothing green can do, so you just play here, and that's checkmate immediately. That's right, it's really difficult to get out of the opening. So if you play in something like this, and then say like blues or greens are 1500 and blues are 1500, and you just want, like, the game can be over really quickly. If green doesn't play anything normal, you can bring your bishop to this diagonal, uh, and then blue has really one choice, and if he doesn't play that, because obviously 1500s don't just like to sacrifice bishops for no reason, this is made very quickly. There's other ways for mate very very quickly. Obviously I said if one of the yellow's best options is this. Um, Obviously, taking advantage of a player that doesn't know how to play the game. You just really want to get these diagonals open as quickly as possible to against these sort of like bad players. Because now, let's say blue just plays something like this, doesn't know. Oh no, not like that. Something like this, doesn't know what they're doing. Um, Yellow can actually come in and we can get another checkmate really quickly on blue. Obviously it's really quick. And that's sort of the sort of things you want to be looking for. Is just this kind of mate is really common in the opening. So is the other kind of mate. So I just want to highlight that. So basically you just want to get your queens out, look to avoid them sort of checkmates. Um, yeah, so look to avoid them sort of checkmates, especially when everyone's active. Don't just look at where the queen scopes. Obviously, these red queens come here to attack this pawn, attacks this pawn. So if the yellow queen makes its way to the center, like this, sometimes people play. Obviously green's under the same exact threat, and we'll look at that sort of what to do with these really common threats. We'll look at that in the next video. I'm just trying to tell you what the best opening move is. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna look at what the other opening is, which is yellow's other option, or red's other option, which is this pawn forward. And green's obviously only response. Again, if green doesn't play that, play something like this. You've obviously got this, and then this queen comes in here for checkmate every single time, unless blue just sacrifices a bishop. So we're gonna just look at this. So red just simple get the queen out, and now blues can just develop like this. The second move in this sort of thing is to move this pawn forward twice. It's the only time I'd advise really moving a pawn forward twice in the opening, other than blocking off these diagonals. So like here, 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 and here. That's also fine to move your pawn forward twice, but again, like really try and avoid that with these pawns. But here's the only other time. Opens up this bishop. These now see each other. So let's get the queen out. So now red just wants to work on creating other threats or being defensively sound. Obviously, this blue queen's got a line, but potentially there's going to be a trade, so you might want to open up this. Just open up your bishop onto here, because now this bishop sees this bishop. So the best sort of most common response to like these bishops seeing each other is to just, the most common response for new players is to just take, but often the best move is to play it somewhere that this pawn ends up here. That way, like the bishops no longer see each other, and this sort of was a wasted move. Now yellow might play something like that, and the game just carries on as normal. But just know that if blue just decides to take this bishop, what you should be looking for as red and yellow is that this diagonal is open. The best ways to close it are really bad, very like weakening. So like moves like this is just very weakening. But obviously blocks a diagonal, because you can't leave this diagonal open. Just because, like, let's just say you play something like this. This yellow queen's gonna just come in here. Actually, in this position, green actually has this move which blocks that. But let's just say green didn't see that. You are looking for stuff like that. Obviously you can't play it in this position just because this queen comes in and blocks, and then it just turns into an equal to queen trade with a threat of checkmate here. So obviously in that line it's not very good, but you understand my point. And just be aware of, like, if he takes and if he doesn't take and this is played, just be wary. Like, you want to continue development as normal. You want this pawn probably blocking this diagonal, and you just generally want your queen to come one of these two squares here. If green is not blocked off this diagonal, you sort of want to force a move, gain a move, just force this forward twice, but you want to end up on this diagonal if possible with the queen. Potentially still want to defend this. Obviously in this sort of this is a bad move to play right now, because of just this this would actually just straight up win blue and green the game, probably, just because I'm not sure if there's anything you can do about it. Obviously this pawn's very weak and you can't do it just yet, but at some point you will want to play the queen onto this diagonal. Just make sure you're defensively solid first. So yeah, that is the two main openings really. We'll jump into the middle game, sort of tactics and stuff like that. in the next video. I hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something. Good luck.